Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're mapping out the sheer economic velocity and the very real human impact of the AI revolution. We're going to be pulling from the IMF's latest scenario planning, along with some newly proposed U.S. legislation, just to figure out exactly what's happening to our global economy and, your daily life. Let's get right into it. So, look at this staggering metric, 99.7%. That is how much the cost to use certain frontier AI models has plummeted recently. And this sets the stage for literally everything else we're going to talk about today. Because this isn't just some gradual, easing of prices over time. No, this is a vertical drop in the cost of inference. The actual price of getting an AI to think, to process data, to generate answers for you, it's basically evaporating. And that sets the stage for massive, completely unstoppable global change. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We've got 1, the AI acceleration, 2, two paths forward, 3, the labor market shock, 4, global and market inequality, 5, protecting civil rights, and finally 6, preparing for the transition.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the AI acceleration.
The timeline we're looking at here brilliantly illustrates just how rapidly the technological horizon is rushing toward us. What we're tracking are the forecasts for artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That's the tipping point where AI shifts from just being a specialized tool into a broadly deployable, completely autonomous drop-in worker. And thanks to those falling computing costs we just talked about, plus massive data center investments and these super rapid hardware-software feedback loops, that timeline, it's compressing down to potentially just 5 years. 5 years! This is what some folks in the tech community are calling the San Francisco consensus. The future is arriving way, way faster than anyone historically anticipated. And because of that breakneck speed, we're looking at a projected $244 billion industry size. To put that into perspective, this isn't just a speculative tech bubble, it is a structural transformation that's reshaping the entire global economy right as we speak. Because as AI research itself becomes automated, it creates these incredibly powerful feedback loops that are just going to further accelerate its growth and capabilities. It literally feeds itself. Moving right along to Section 2, two paths forward. Notice the pretty stark contrast between the two models here. The IMF has actually mapped out 2 potential futures, totally based on how fast society absorbs these tools. On the one hand, we've got the baseline diffusion scenario. Under this model, the tech exists, sure, but adoption is gradual, it's uneven. It gets bogged down by institutional friction, regulatory uncertainty, energy capacity bottlenecks, and, even just basic managerial risk aversion. But then, on the flip side, you've got the runaway diffusion scenario. This is a future of rapid, completely unchecked automation across both services and industry. We're talking a sudden, massive expansion of capacity, but also swift labor displacement and immense corporate concentration. Which brings us to Section 3, the labor market shock. So, what does this actually mean for jobs? Well, here's the great paradox of the AI labor shock. It all entirely depends on the task itself. Ironically, if AI automates a high-expertise task, like, say, navigating a taxi in a complex city, it actually lowers the barrier to entry for everyone else. More people can suddenly do the job. That raises overall employment in that specific field, but unfortunately, it stagnates or even reduces the wages. But conversely, if AI automates a low-expertise task like basic proofreading, it makes the remaining tasks much more expert-intensive. So this boosts the average expertise and the wages for the workers who are left, but it drastically cuts the total number of jobs in that occupation. It's a massive, absolute structural shift in exactly how human expertise is valued. Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, global and market inequality. Looking at the projections, you can clearly see how advanced economies are set up to capture a disproportionately massive share of the AI-related GDP gains. They already have the digital infrastructure, the AI-ready labor pools, and the strong institutions you actually need to deploy these models effectively. And this is a big deal because it threatens to persistently widen global inequality. It could leave emerging markets and developing countries even further behind if they don't have these enabling conditions in place. But beyond just national GDP, we really have to look at the market structure itself, because the immense costs of data and computing power mean we are looking at an extreme winner-take-most dynamic here. Market power and wealth are becoming heavily concentrated among just a few massive tech hubs and cloud computing hyperscalers. Plus, as AI and robotics seriously compress labor costs, we're facing the very real prospect of manufacturing actually reshoring back to advanced economies.
This directly threatens traditional export-led growth models in developing nations, and it pushes us toward a severe cross-country economic divergence.
Now, let's look at the individual level in Section 5, Protecting Civil Rights. So, addressing that economic friction the IMF mentioned earlier, U.S. Representative Pramila Jayapal points to a really massive societal concern: the risk of biased algorithms acting as automated gatekeepers. And we're talking about everyday critical decisions here. Your next loan approval, finding an apartment, getting the right healthcare treatment, or, even just passing an initial job screening. If the AI running these systems is trained on historical data that's already filled with past biases, the technology risks literally supercharging those biases at a massive scale. In response to these exact risks, lawmakers have recently introduced the AI Civil Rights Act. Now, impartially looking at this proposed legislation, it basically aims to establish strict testing mandates, both before a model is deployed and after it actually goes live. On top of that, it seeks to dramatically increase systemic transparency for any algorithms making those critical life decisions we just talked about. The goal is to ensure developers and corporations are actually held accountable if their models result in discrimination. And honestly, this is exactly the kind of institutional response the IMF noted earlier that will ultimately shape which path we end up taking.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 6, Preparing for the Transition.
The IMF is actually quite direct about the absolute need for aggressive institutional adaptation here. Whether we face that runaway diffusion scenario or micro-level algorithmic bias, we have to completely rethink our systems. Social safety nets and wage insurance, they're going to need a total redesign to handle super rapid job-to-job transitions. And because labor income might shrink overall, tax bases are likely going to have to shift to capture corporate economic rents and capital, just to avoid severe fiscal shortfalls. Meanwhile, central banks are going to need upgraded monetary diagnostics to handle much noisier inflation signals and massive investment booms. But ultimately, none of this works without immediate international coordination on standards and taxation to prevent totally fragmented global markets.
So I'll leave you with this one thought to consider. The technological velocity of AI, that is a given at this point. But our economic and societal outcomes, those definitely are not. So, will our future be defined by runaway algorithms or the guardrails we choose to build today? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems shaping our tomorrow.